In this message this afternoon, I'd like to recount two embarrassing incidents I experienced while in seminary that involved reactions to me of my beloved mentor and professor, Dr. John Gerstner. You have to understand that when I was a student of Dr. Gerstner, I irritated him more than twice. The first incident that I'll relate to you was this. We had been in chapel at the seminary, which was a very liberal seminary, hostile to orthodoxy and certainly to Reformed orthodoxy, and I listened reluctantly to one of the professors giving a sermon that disrespected and dishonored everything precious to those who love the Reformed faith. And when the service was over, I walked out of the chapel with Dr. Gerstner. And I casually remarked as we were walking together, I said, wow, if John Calvin would have heard that sermon, he would have turned over in his grave. And in mid-stride, Gerstner planted his front foot, pivoted around, looked at me with a glare of death, and said to me, "What did you say?" And I said, well, what did I say? I just said, if Calvin would have heard that, he'd have turned on. He said, "Young man, don't you know that nothing could possibly disturb the felicity that John Calvin is enjoying right now? You may be disturbed by that sermon, but it's certainly not going to detract from the joy everlasting into which the magisterial reformer has already entered." I said, okay. It was just a manner of speaking. I understand what you're saying. You see, because Calvin was in that place where there's no more death, no more pain, no more tears, no more sorrow. But it was the other time that I really annoyed him. This time I was in class. It wasn't a lecture situation, it was a seminar. There were only about 8 students, and we were seated around the table with the professor, and one of the students asked the question, "Dr. Gerstner, how can I be happy in heaven if I am aware that one of my loved ones is in hell?" And Gerstner snapped around and looked at this man and he said, "Don't you know that when you're in heaven, you will be so sanctified that you will be able to see your own mother in hell and rejoice in that, knowing that God's perfect justice is being carried out?" And while the student who asked that question shrunk back in horror, his face turning white, I burst out laughing. I started laughing, and he looked at me and says, "What's so funny?" I said, "Excuse me, Dr. Gerstner." I said, "I can't believe you just said what you just said." I said, "Nobody talks like that." I'm thinking, this guy's nuts. I'll be happy, I'll be so sanctified in heaven that I could look into the pit of hell, see my mother there, and be glad. I can't imagine anything more ridiculous than that. But he got my attention. I had to think about it deeply and often.